Excuse me, do you think it's alright not to pay?
You ever notice how the people who cause the most damage always want to lecture everyone else on morality? I mean, half the country can't afford rent, but some politicians want a medal for yelling at a guy skipping the tube. It's not justice, that's theatre. It's not law and order, it's PR for the powerful. So I'm going to play the clip and I want you to answer the question, is this about justice or is it just a performance?
Excuse me, do you think it's alright not to pay? Seriously, why do you go back to the barrier and pay? Do you want to go back and pay like everybody else? Do you think it's alright not to pay? Why don't you go back and pay? You can say off as much as you want.
Robert Jenrick, a British politician for the Conservative/Tory party and maybe a leader in the future, wants you to believe that cracking down on £2.80 fare dodgers is making the streets safer. But if this is justice, why do the real criminals never get caught? While Robert Jenrick goes full robo-twat on the tube, here's a list of crimes with no arrests. The blood scandal. Thousands were infected with HIV and hepatitis. No one's been jailed.
More than 30,000 people in the UK were infected with HIV and hepatitis C after being given contaminated blood products by the National Health Service in the 1970s and 80s. Many have since died. Others unknowingly passed infections on to partners who then died. Victims and their families have spent decades fighting for compensation.
Grenfell Tower, 72 dead, the cladding still legal in places, and no one's been arrested. The Post Office Horizon scandal, 900 innocent people are prosecuted, while Fujitsu still has government contracts, no one's been arrested. The PPE scandal, billions funneled to Conservative donors through VIP lanes with more fraud than you can fit into a warehouse. And let's not forget Jimmy Savile, who had people cover up his work and his allegations, they've never been prosecuted, and of course Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew, where the police claim they've investigated and have not been able to arrest a single person. Despite the arrests of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell in America, the British police seem to refuse to want to investigate any further, even though we know they were bringing people, trafficking people, to other people in the UK. And Jenrick, he helped a Tory donor dodge 45 million in tax. That's enough to fund 1,000 police officers for a year. But sure, let's chase down the kids skipping the gates at Stratford. You steal from a store, you get jail. You loot a country, you get knighted. Because we can deal with one guy jumping the tube barrier. We understand that, that's easy. But a prime minister crashing the economy, tanking pensions, raising your rent, handling billions to his mates in a pandemic, that's too big. It's abstract. So instead of arresting him, we let him go on a speaking tour. It's like if you ruin one person's life, you're a criminal, but if you ruin 10 million, you're an important figure in public life. What do you expect people to do when you leave them with nothing? In Tory Labour Britain, 1/3 of adults have less than £250 in savings. Wages have been frozen for decades, whilst rents are sky high. And food banks. Food banks are part of the welfare system now.
I'm loving it. The slogan of the world's most famous fast food chain. But it seems in the UK, many can't afford to love it. Figures show there are now more food banks in this country than branches of McDonald's. And given the fast food chain can be found on pretty much every corner, that's an awful lot of food banks.
And Jenrick's got a camera crew confronting people who can't afford a train ticket. So what does the Tory government do? Well, they cut. They cut youth services, they slash mental health, they cut the number of police officers, and sometimes they even deny they did that.
20,000 more police to make sure that we tackle crime and keep people safe.
Sorry. 20,000 more police. Under a Tory government, 21,000 police officers were lost.
Well, we're putting 20,000 more police on our streets, and I think that is incredibly welcome to people.
That doesn't even cover the cuts, Mr. Hangop.
And then for a real kicker, they film poor people being humiliated for trying to get to work. And let's talk about those fines from COVID. Some regular people were fined £10,000 for breaking COVID rules. At Downing Street, the worst offender address in the country, the highest fine was £50. Starting to see a pattern here. You know things are broken when the system creates desperation and then acts shocked when people act desperate.
It was just approaching my birthday and 3 friends had worked it out that I'd been feeling a little bit down, a little bit low, so they decided to come round and sort of surprise me for an hour and sit in the garden, distanced, have a chat and then make their way off. And within an hour the police arrived at the door and said we had an illegal gathering, marched my 3 friends off the premises. We were read our rights cautioned, and then within 7 days we had a fine of £200 and £100 if it was paid within 7 days, which we did. We all paid.
Kieran watched the PM's apology today in disbelief.
And I must take responsibility.
You accepted your punishment.
Yep.
Hands up.
Yep.
I did wrong.
I haven't got an issue with what we did. We were wrong. We knew we were wrong. We accepted the punishments and moved on. This, you know, when watching this today, why can't that man just say, "Yep, we've been found out. It was wrong. We apologise and we will be disciplined accordingly."
One I recall attending was my grandmother's funeral. She was a wonderful woman. As well as a love for her family, she served her community as a councillor, and she served Dartford Conservative Association loyally for many years. I drove for 3 hours from Staffordshire to Kent. Only 10 people at the funeral. Many people who loved her had to watch online. I didn't hug my siblings. I didn't hug my parents. I gave a eulogy. And then afterwards, I didn't even go to her house for a cup of tea. I drove back 3 hours from Kent to Staffordshire. Does the Prime Minister think I'm a fool?
If we know poverty is a major factor in crime, why don't we fix the poverty? Wilson and Pickett, 2 public health researchers, studied 20 wealthy nations. They found more inequality equals more crime, more mental illness, and more mistrust. Robert Sampson of Harvard University, in his studies, discovered that poor areas creates a social trust collapse and crime takes its place. The UN also backs it. Their data shows the worse the inequality, the higher the violence, theft and disorder, especially for young men. The Joseph Rowntree Foundation screams it. You may know them for their famous fruit pastels, but they've been saying for decades every cut to benefits, youth centres or housing is followed by a spike in petty crime, not because people are bad, but because they're broke. Poverty increases crime, inequality fuels desperation, and the policies from this government drive both. Both Labour and the Tories have got all the data in the world. They just don't want to read it because reading it would mean they have a problem. They have to deal with empathy.
Tens of thousands of disabled and sick people are dying every year. We are dying. There have been hundreds of suicides. I spent the 48 hours after the last general election trying to talk people out of killing themselves, and I didn't always succeed. People are dying here, and nobody cares. I have friends who have been helping resettle disabled people in Scotland, because at the very least we have a Scottish Parliament which is trying its best with limited funds to protect people against the worst of these cuts.
There's plenty of heartrending stories here, and no one could be anything other than moved by it. We are putting in...
Would you like to turn around and just look? She's literally sitting behind you.
We have put 11,000 more doctors into the NHS, 12,000 more nurses. We have got a renewed... Hold on. We have got a renewed focus on mental health, and also trying to make sure we take the pressure off big hospitals in the manifesto. But the raw truth is, the money's got to come from somewhere, and it's very easy.
Let him respond.
It's very easy, and I can think of lots of things that I would like to avoid making difficult decisions on, and lots of areas like the health service or schools I want to put even more money in. But unless you've got a strong economy, creating the revenue, it's just a childish wish list. We're trying to do our best to get the balance right between responsible public finances and investing in some of those crucial areas you discussed.
You choose to sacrifice tens of thousands of disabled people for the sake of that.
I don't support the Human Rights Act, and I don't believe in economic and social rights.
Let me be clear, I don't condone crime, but I also don't condone people being battered by life, then mocked by a millionaire politician for trying to survive, especially when the idiots he works with have caused complete and utter disastrous economic damage to the country. Whether that's Brexit, which was self-inflicted economic damage,
But the worst case scenario, economically, is better than where we are today.
Or having no preparations or plan to deal with a pandemic, or economic policies that favour the rich and not the poorest, creating a huge gap in wealth equality. Or deliberately running down the NHS. Remember, they offered us 40 hospitals and they produced none. You can't freeze wages, hike rents and cut benefits, then film someone for not tapping in on the tube and call it a moral victory. That's not law enforcement, that's class performance, and Robert Jenrick, he's not fighting crime, he's performing it and defending it. All with the aim of making you feel quite angry, whilst also giving off the portrayal he's the hero, even though he's actually the villain who caused the damage in the first place. And if that wasn't enough, have a listen to this.
That decision was made by another minister in my department.
Which minister, by the way?
It was made by Jake Berry, who then was...
Right, who also got money for his constituency.
I think, well, that was the decision made by another minister. Well, it was made by myself, but I think, to be honest...
So you decided that Jake Berry's constituency got money, and Jake Berry decided that your constituency
with respect,
got money.
This is perfectly normal.
If you're sick of the two-tier justice system, where billionaires walk free and the broke get hunted for pennies, then share this video. Because until we start locking up the people who crash the system, don't talk to me about fare dodgers.
Excuse me, do you think it's all right not to pay? Seriously, why do you go back to the barrier and pay? Do you want to go back and pay like everybody else? Do you think it's all right not to pay? Why don't you go back and pay? You can say off as much as you want. But everyone else has to pay. You're carrying a knife, you say? Nearly 1 in 25 people using London's public transport aren't paying for it. So there's 8 officers down there, but 1 minute away, that gate's wide open. It's also just annoying watching so many people break the law and get away with it.
Or at least most of it.
Right, should we go over here to these guys here? Excuse me, gents.
Hello, hello.
You're on camera, mate. You're bang to rights.
Just step to the side and...
All right, thanks very much, guys. It's the same with bike theft, phone theft, tool theft, shoplifting, drugs in town centres, weird Turkish barber shops. It's all chipping away at society. The state needs to reassert itself and go after lawbreakers.
Yes, that's a very good idea, Robert. Why don't we go after the lawbreakers is the question I've been asking myself for many, many years. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like and subscribe button. And finally, thank you to all my Patreon and YouTube subscribers. You keep the channel going and growing. Once again, thanks for listening. Bye for now.